So Julie, I think I'm going to get started. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. This is our first partner webinar for 2014, and last year we were doing them monthly along with our partner newsletter that goes out each month. This year we've decided to maybe do it quarterly and have special guests come in and speak, such as Julie Strenn. So that's what we're going to try so far. We still are going to keep up with the monthly newsletter, so please feel free, if you're not on that list, to let me know, and I'll add you. If you know someone who would benefit from being on that list, let me know. That's the only place as of right now where you can get all the links to the previous webinars that we've done. Reason being, some of the information that we share and talk about is stuff that we're not comfortable putting online for everyone to see yet. So that's right now the only place that you can access those from. And of course, they're private YouTube links that I can always email to you through an email as well. So there's two ways to get those. I want to do a little bit of house cleaning before we get into talking with Julie. Let's just switch over here. Hopefully by now a lot of you have already heard that Ian Sanders, our Director of Sales and Marketing, actually left Simply Home in January, the 4th of January, and he's pursuing some other opportunities. So we're really sad to see him go, but want to let everyone know that we right now are taking care of his folks that he was in contact with. All of his emails are being forwarded to our Vice President of Business Development, Jason Ray, and then of course if you need to contact myself, you can do that as well. So right now we're kind of in the mix of following up with some of the leads that he had out there, and then of course still continuing our customer service for customers that are active with us. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, and we're still in close contact with him and contacting him as questions come up. So if there's anything that we need to relay, please let us know. One of the other things we wanted to talk about, and probably in a later webinar, we'll go into more detail about some of the new products and services that we're offering in 2014. The number one thing on that list is we do now have a cellular unit. The Butler Simply Home system has a cellular component that we've added to it. So that's really going to broaden our horizons as far as the service that we can offer with just this Butler. No longer will someone need a landline or an internet connection. So this is all built in. They don't have to pay an extra fee for their internet connection. Everything is in the system, and it's just a one-time additional, I think it's a couple $100 up front more than the original Butler, but the money that you save in the long run is really well worth it. So along with the Simply Home system, we also are offering cellular units with the personal emergency response systems and the medication dispenser. So those are two units now that, along with the landline product that we also offer it in the cellular form. So you do not need a landline for those. So we're excited to offer those and have had a lot of success with those so far. One of the other things I wanted to mention for our current partners and clients is we are now accepting American Express and Discover, in addition to the Visa and the MasterCard that we already offered. So at the beginning of the year, all of our new purchases must be paid for as well in full within 31 days, or a finance charge of 1.5% is going to be added. So that's a new policy that we have. And then, of course, our service agreements that most of you are aware of when we first put a system in, we're asking for existing customers. We're going to actually be reaching out and contacting you to update those agreements. So if we haven't already, we'll be in contact with you on those. I also wanted to mention some of the tools that are available for you. I mentioned that the partner newsletters and webinars are actually recorded and going to be in your newsletter. But we also have other ways of getting some of that information to you along with our website. The blog is located right there on our website, so you can keep up with current events that's going on here, as well as some of the other social media sites, Facebook, our YouTube page. We're trying to post new videos there, as well as tech tips and things like that. So Try to keep up with us there, and that is it for the tools that we are offering now. We do usually have a new tech tip each month, and this month we felt that it was valuable to do a recording on replacing the battery. So we sat down with Jason and went in detail on how to replace the battery on both types of pendants that we offer, both types of door window contacts, and then the motion sensor. So that video is available. It's about a 6-minute long video. I'm not going to show it right now just so we have more time with Julie, but that is something that we have, and we can definitely send you the link. It's also going out now in the notifications. You'll notice that if you get a low battery notification in the form of a text message or an email, you will have a direct link to this video to kind of walk you through how to change that battery on your own for you and your staff. So hopefully that will be a good tool for you to have moving forward as well. And again, each month we're doing tech tips on new things. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of an introduction of Julie. And if I didn't say at the beginning of the webinar, I'm Kristen Suttles. I conduct most of these webinars for our partners monthly, and I work primarily in marketing and customer service here at Simply Home. Today we're talking with Julie Strenn, and Julie is currently the owner of LinkEd. It's an agency providing consulting services for innovations in long-term care. So her years of experience have really gotten her to this point, and with some of the conversations I've had with her, she's had experience working as a program manager for Wood County Unified Services and then an interim executive director for the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Central Wisconsin, and then most recently serving as director of Provider Network with Community Care of Central Wisconsin before actually breaking off and starting LinkEd. And Julie, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we definitely want to welcome Julie, and thank you so much for being a part of this webinar and for joining us today. The topic we hope to focus on today is really picking Julie's brain about how technology can be integrated into provider services effectively, and find out more about the shift in service models for long-term care agencies. And Julie now is in Wisconsin, and she is joining us from, did you say +1 weather right now, Julie?
Actually, it dropped back to 0, but it's not like
Wow.
So
well, we just got some flurries here, so I'm sure all the schools will be shut down for the rest of the week.
He is trying to set this up for her and a few other people. Wildwood, though. Wildwood Services.
I think we're actually able to hear someone else on the call. If everybody who's joining us, if you want to just put your call on mute, and that way everybody can hear Julie equally.
Go back over there and Elizabeth and have you send it. Sign it.
Can you hear me, Julie?
I can't hear you.
Okay. Let's just wait, and we'll give everybody a chance to put your call on mute.
I just so maybe we can get with Krista and see if we can figure out something.
Can everybody hear us okay?
I don't even know what's on this. Yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise. We've got somebody on the line that probably just needs to put us on mute.
Right now, I am facilitating a big thing with a bunch of citizens.
I'm not sure that they're able to hear me right now. Julie, we'll try to move on as best as we can. Let's just kind of start by talking about the relationship between Simply Home and you, and how we got to know each other.
Yeah. We got to get. Okay. I don't know why the contact.
Sorry, it's really hard to talk over someone.
Yeah, I understand. Let's wait one more second.
Okay. Perfect. Oh. Perfect. Well, wonderful. Well, I want to add just a couple things to what Kristen said. So I really started my background working for a provider agency. So I was a program manager for a provider agency that provided supports and services in people's homes and apartments, as well as provided supports and services in adult family homes or more group home settings. And so that's where I started out of college, and I started working with individuals that had physical disabilities or developmental disabilities. And so I've had a passion from the start to really support individuals in living in their own homes and in their own apartments in their communities, and the strengths that every individual brings to our communities, and how to help individuals that might need some extra support needs also be an active part in their communities. So that's been my passion. I've also had the ability, I've worked for the Department of Health Services for the state of Wisconsin. So I've had some county experience in Wisconsin, I've had state experience, and then most recently I had managed care experience working for the managed care organization. Just to answer the question Kristen asked about kind of how did I ever get to know Simply Home. When I was working for the managed care organization, I had the privilege of working directly with the Wisconsin-based provider agency that works very closely with Simply Home Innovative Services. And so my introduction to Simply Home, and quite honestly my introduction to everything that technology has to offer an individual to be as independent as possible in their own home, in their community, came through really learning alongside a provider agency and how that could look for individuals in the community. And so then through that, I had the ability to get to know Simply Home, and now in my new role of being able to work with many different partners, have been able to share the experience and the successes that Simply Home has in supporting people to be as independent as possible in their homes, in their communities.
Great. And, you know, in our previous conversations, you had mentioned that Simply Home may have been the introduction to technology in managed care organizations, but not limited to Simply Home technology. It's really just the idea of using technology that you support, and it's not always Simply Home. It's whatever is the best fit for that organization, right?
Correct, absolutely. So my introduction to Simply Home hasn't been from a perspective of, in a sense, being a marketing person for Simply Home. Instead, it's been, I've had the privilege of being in a role with, which is really why Kate and I decided to start our own business and start LinkEd LLC about 15 months ago, is we had had unbelievable opportunities within our managed care organization to really look at how do we support individuals to be as independent as possible and to be contributing citizens in their communities, and how do we support people through what has traditionally been a support system. So what is our role and what isn't our role? In that shift that we saw at Community Care of Central Wisconsin, one of the managed care organizations in Wisconsin, Kate and I just had a lot of energy around how we wanted to expand to share that learning and growth with multiple partners. So we wanted to share that with multiple funders and multiple providers within the state. And so actually Simply Home is one of the tools that, well, technology is actually one of the tools that I would share with providers around shifting their system. And within technology within Wisconsin, Simply Home is one of the vendors that I would share. And what my experience has been is just that when those vendors are shared, Simply Home has done a really, really wonderful job, and providers are very excited to partner with them and partner around this opportunity of giving people more independence.
Great, Julie. And can you talk a little bit about, too, how MCOs and providers are set up in Wisconsin, how they work together, and how LinkEd comes into play with those?
Absolutely. So Wisconsin used to be a county-based system, so there's 72 counties in Wisconsin, and it used to be that the state of Wisconsin would delegate the long-term care supports and services to counties. In the last probably about 12 to 15 years, they have shifted to a managed care approach. And so, and it is not across the entire state. It is, I believe there are still 11 or 12 counties that are not in managed care, and that is still coming to make the full transition. So now the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Health Services contracts, and currently there are 9 managed care organizations in Wisconsin. So they contract with one of the managed care organizations who then contracts for supports and services. The managed care organization provides the care management service, the social worker and a registered nurse, and they provide that administrative support. And they authorize supports and services, but they don't actually provide any of the direct services. So they then contract out to vendors and providers to provide those services. And Simply Home could be an option from a couple different perspectives. They either could be partnering with a service provider in Wisconsin that maybe provides long-term support in people's homes and apartments and uses the environmental and the assistive technology and the alert systems to create as much independence and a cost-effective system as possible. Or the managed care organization could and would contract directly with Simply Home for individuals who are living in their own homes and apartments, and maybe their family wants to respond to them or wants to support that, or there's some informal or natural supports that might be responding to that, but they would still offer the individual that technology as an adaptive aid or a personal emergency response. LinkEd has had the privilege over the last 15 months to really be engaged on both sides. We've been contracted through the managed care organizations to assist them in moving forward their models of service to be more around providing community-based, shifting a model to be really providing more individualized and community-based services. And we've also been working with a number of provider agencies to assist them in shifting their model from maybe more traditional either sheltered workshops or traditional adult family home community-based residential facilities, which are the names of our group homes in Wisconsin, to more individualized support. We've also had the privilege from LinkEd's perspective to also receive some state grants that we've been able to pull together a number of partners to look at system change.
Great. So, you know, with you being contracted both with MCOs and providers to kind of work on this shift in model that they offer, what's been the number one thing to even bring this about? Is it funding? Is it quality of life? What is it that's driving this new model?
Well, I would love to say that what's driving the new model is it's the right thing to do, and everyone deserves to live in their own apartment, in their own home, being supported in their communities and contributing to their communities and receiving back from their neighbors and being and having valued social roles in their community like we all have. That would be wonderful if that was the only driving factor, but I would say that that has been the wonderful result of a fiscal crisis. So, you know, across the United States, and certainly no different in Wisconsin, we've been experiencing a lot of fiscal crises. Even moving into 2014, $52 million have been removed from the managed care funding from the Department of Health Services. So every year there's less and less funding and more individuals to serve. And in managed care, there also aren't wait lists, so everybody is provided supports and resources to match what they need. And so it demands of us to concentrate on supporting individuals to be a part of their community. Sure. Without it, the long-term care system is not going to be able to survive. And so while I would love to say that the only driving factor has been that that it's just the right thing to do and it's how we should be supporting people in a very individualized, very community-based fashion. It's actually come as a result of a fiscal crisis in Wisconsin, and we have, and what it has shown is that it's not only the right thing to do, it not only creates stronger communities, but it's also been more cost-effective. And so, and it's been interesting because what that does is then, depending on the audience, you're able to use multiple, if you're talking to advocates, you talk to them about the great lives people have and all of the successes that people have had living very individualized, receiving very individualized supports in their community. But if you're talking to a funder, you can also talk about, but you want to do this because it's the most cost-effective way to look at providing support.
And Julie, what is a provider or a funder looking for when they come to Linked Ed? What is their outcome that they hope to achieve? And what does that look like? I mean, what does the time frame look like? What are the projects that you specialize in look like?
Sure. So in 2013, we were funded by a number of different organizations. Managed care organizations have typically looked at receiving supports from us that help shift how they pay for supports. So we have assisted them in looking at more outcome-based payment models. One example of that is I assisted a provider organization or a funder organization in shifting from paying for job coaching hours to support someone in the community to instead paying the member the hours that that individual actually works on the job. So what that does is it shifts to an outcome-based system that the provider is actually incentivized by fading job coaching and finding jobs that actually work for that person to be as independent as possible, versus our past system, which would say, thank you for doing a great job, and we're going to decrease your authorized hours, hence you lose revenue. So we've really looked at, and Linked Ed has helped organizations look at outcome-based payment models. We've also been contracted to lead projects that bring together people that are looking at doing services different and helping them learn through the process of shifting to individualized models, which has resulted in us developing tools, assessment tools that look different than they looked in the past, funding sheets that look different than they looked in the past to develop what it might cost to support an individual, as well as specifically Linked Ed also has our own learning management system and platform that providers can very economically buy courses and training and resources on how to support someone independently and look at it, a very individualized support, and then we also would provide education and resources directly for a purchaser that would belong to them, for them to look at shifting their learning within an organization. From a provider standpoint, it has been, we've also assisted with their quality management, and again, what are you measuring? We, at least in Wisconsin, have historically measured are people happy with the services that they've received versus are you really happy with the life that you have? And are we as an organization supporting what you asked us to support to help you have that life that you're asking for? So we've helped people shift their quality management systems from not such a compliance-based model, even though compliance is important and we keep that separate, but also looking at what do you really want to measure in quality.
Great. And do you offer your services just in Wisconsin or nationwide?
We offer our services nationwide. I would say that the majority of our work in 2013 has been in Wisconsin. We did just submit a proposal to a provider in Pennsylvania, and we did do some work with a provider in South Carolina in 2013.
Great. So it's not unusual for a provider or an MCO to contract out with a consultant, correct? It's just
No,
a matter
actually,
of what that group specializes in. Do you mind kind of going into what LinkEd specializes in a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, even within Wisconsin, there are a number of different consultants that concentrate on individualized employment and community asset-based development and positive behavioral supports. And I think that while Kate and I certainly have expertise in a number of those different areas also, I think the specialty that we bring is really either helping a funder or helping a provider know how to shift their supports and services in a managed care model to be providing cost-effective individualized supports and services. And I also firmly believe, kind of tying into this webinar, is that is not possible to be individualized and cost-effective in a lot of different ways if you are not maximizing the technology that is available to all of us and certainly tailored and available to individuals that might need supports and services as a part of that. So it's not the answer, but it's a very crucial tool that is needed in order to not only maximize the independence, but also to be cost effective in that approach.
So when you're speaking with a provider, for example, and you're saying, here's what a plan looks like for you, and technology is a small portion of that. You know, we recently had someone reach out to us that was looking at several different technology companies, which is, you know, just fine. Is that something that you say, here's everything that's out there and available, and here's what we suggest, or, you know, go kind of do the research on your own? Or do you feel comfortable enough saying, we recommend this type of system for this outcome and this type of system for that outcome? Does that make sense?
So, yep, absolutely. So my approach with providers has been really, I have been privileged to know and been able to experience a number of different experiences within technology, but I don't consider myself the technology expert. I really consider myself that catalyst that helps connect the provider to the components that they need. And I will share with them the different even about just the topic of technology, I would share with them the different vendors that I know of that support Wisconsin and then what they bring to the table. And then I would continue to support, as an example, with one provider that actually is ready within the next 30 days to actually install some Simply Home technology. I've supported them in writing grants and different other funding opportunities to really, again, bring that as a community resource and bring that as a resource to actually more than just them as their organization. But instead, how can this be available to the people in the community, to the hospitals, to the aging and disability resource centers, which share with people when they come to them what the resources are in the community. So I don't consider myself the technology expert. I hook them up with the technology expert, which would be yourself, as an example. But I certainly share with them, that my experience shows that technology is one of the 6 kind of cornerstones of things they need to look at in order to put together an individualized support system that is also cost effective.
Great. So when you mentioned 6 cornerstones that they need to look at, can you go into detail on some of the other cornerstones?
Sure. So the first that we look at is really their learning and development. And so it really is a shift from being a caregiver to being that your role now is really about how to help that person and support that person in what is of interest to them in their community. It's not about being a paid friend. It's about helping that person with their long-term care needs so that they can go and become friends and become members of different things in their community. And that really is a learning and development shift, at least in Wisconsin, for our staff who have historically seen their role as caregivers. The second is housing, and so it's very important to assist a person in securing and finding where they're going to live, whether that's a home ownership program, renting an apartment, finding a roommate to rent an apartment with because that's more affordable. Also staffing. It's really a shift from the person to have more flexibility in scheduling and knowing and being a part of who's providing that staffing. So it's not I'm going to schedule in here and send these individuals to work with you, but instead that person really being a key component in that. It is a complete shift in the assessment process. And one of the privileges that I've had in working with the last provider and Simply Home is also looking at that assessment process, which very much needs to be more of a discovery and exploration process of who that person is and what they bring to the table and what they might even need the long-term care system for. But it's also integrating the opportunities that technology offers into that assessment process. We all, and I'm sitting on it right now, right? We all have a smartphone. Or a majority of people have smartphones. We all have technology at our fingertips. What are we doing to support that individuals who need long-term support have that same access to that? And how are we integrating and even understanding what they feel comfortable with and what they know when we're talking about how we could successfully support them? Also transportation. If people can't get from A to B, if the mobility in their community is not known and not explored with that individual, and how does anyone who maybe doesn't drive a car get to where they need to get, and how do they maximize and access what is available in their community, they won't have the opportunity to be as independent as possible. And then the last is absolutely technology. And how do you use, whether it's alerts, environmental controls, or the telehealth system, to really support the most independence for that individual. I'll just share one particular story. I worked with a couple when I was at Community Care of Central Wisconsin, and one of them was coming home from the nursing home, and the answer was we were going to need to have awake night staff, or at a minimum sleep night staff in their home with them, because there were some incontinence issues at night that just the traditional incontinence pads wouldn't take care of. And the spouse couldn't help with that at night, and they needed that support. And the traditional support system would be like, well, I guess we're going to need to at least have staff there sleeping so they can wake up and be available to support the individual. Of course, that support need is a very vital health and safety, very important support need. And through the use of technology, something we didn't really know about before it was suggested to us by a provider agency, through the use of using a pad on the bed. When I talked to this couple, and when we wrote our story and wrote the statistics and data in our paper on Community Care of Central Wisconsin and the partnership with Innovative Services and Simply Home, that story always means so much to me because, number one, it saved $50,000 a year that we would have spent as a managed care organization. So when you're only talking costs, which a lot of times those are the numbers that you have to share and you have to have the hard data. But when I go sit in the living room of that couple, they don't care about the $50,000 or not, even though they're very happy that we saved money. What they care about is that there was not someone either awake or asleep in their apartment while they were trying to sleep as a couple at night. And so it provided not only a cost-effective alternative, but it provided a quality of life alternative. And so whether it's the environmental controls that are offered or certain alerts and opportunities, what has it in the process of that pilot and putting that paper together, we learned the importance of both hard and soft data. Hard data so that you could show the numbers that we weren't spending more money in Wisconsin because there isn't any more money to spend. And the soft data, which is this is why we work hard every day trying to figure out how we can find what someone might need in their life to be successful because they had a better quality of life because the system didn't interfere. The system provided the support that was needed. So
That's awesome. So obviously there's really a lot that goes into the changing the model and the way you think about the services. What kind of change is most important, do you think?
Well, I think the most important change is for all individuals to realize the important gifts that we all have and the important needs that our communities have for those gifts. And I think for many years we didn't necessarily concentrate on how do we support an individual to have all of the valued social roles that we all have in our own lives as mother and church member and PTO president and school board member and all of those things that we can rattle off in our own lives. It's when that shift happens, and it's when individuals that are supporting people get that gut, the kick in the gut that I felt like happened to me about 6 years ago, that said, this is why we're supporting people. And we all are very kind and friendly people, but we don't pay people to be our friends. And yet in the support system, we think that's okay all the time. And so it's what are those tools that we need so that the long-term care system can be what they're supposed to be in people's lives. When I go out for supper on Friday night with my friends, I don't ask them to support me in my personal care needs in the restroom because I don't have those needs and I don't need that support. But I also don't ask them if I have to pay them to come with me. It's the same thing. There is a role for the long-term care support system, and that role is to provide those long-term care needs. And then there is a role that we should not be playing in someone's lives because everyone deserves friends and relationships and having those meaningful roles in their lives. And I just see and have seen so many examples of how technology has created additional opportunities and tools for people to have those ordinary, typical lives in the community that we all have, if any of us really could call our life ordinary and typical.
Yeah, and we're honored to see that too, and we'd love to see that shift and see how technology can make such a difference. It's really amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about the projects that you're currently working on at LinkEd?
Sure. So currently we are we're helping a managed care organization do expansion of managed care in Wisconsin. We've been working with 7 different partners on the expansion of self-determination and self-directed supports in Wisconsin. We are moving forward in the creation of continually adding new resources and courses to our learning management system, including a creation of a community-supported living suite, which would be all about those different 6 components and cornerstones I talked about. We will go more in depth about each of them and the components of what make them successful. We are working with a provider on their quality management system change. Doing performance-based contracting with some county systems. We're helping a provider do vocational transformation from sheltered-based work to individualized supports, and also finalizing and assisting the Department of Health Services with Wisconsin as they actually add community-supported living, which would pay for this wide range of supports in a daily rate. I've been instrumental in writing that waiver language that they're submitting to CMS.
Great. And there's a document that you actually designed to kind of broaden the understanding of community-supported living in Wisconsin. We have that document, and feel free to share it with our partners if you'd like. I don't know that it's on our website yet, but we've definitely been circulating that around. How do you see having data like that study that you put together maybe benefiting a Simply Home partner? What's the best way for them to use that tool to their advantage?
Absolutely. As I talked earlier, I think it is crucial to match soft data and hard data. So soft data meaning the individual outcomes and the hard data, meaning the cost, when evaluating the success of change in a system. So if I were a partner trying to share why Simply Home or a technology resource could support support a provider entity, I would share with them how the stories in our paper about how people's lives were enhanced. They felt like they had more independence in their lives. They were actually able to come out of more restrictive settings and into more independent settings in their community, and there are stories in our paper that share that. And then I would also share with them not only the paper that we put together, but I also know that Innovative Services has some data from when they did some work in the Northeast area in regards to moving people out of institutional settings into the community, and what happens when you use technology in the right way to support individuals to not overserve them, and look at the comparison in cost between traditional services and community-supported living. And that has been the driver in, and then from my component, I don't think it's successful and it's possible to be cost-effective without having some type of the technology support and resources. And the providers that I've brought to the table to share that with have themselves chosen Simply Home because the product sells itself from the perspective of being a wonderful resource with great customer service around it. So I would share with them that it's the right thing to do. It provides more it provides more effective support for everyone. It's a way to connect communities, and it's cost effective. And here is a tool and here is a resource that can support you in it. I do believe, though, that if an organization as a vendor of potentially sharing Simply Home with an organization, if they are in the early processes of shifting how they provide more group-type setting supports into individualized supports, I would encourage you to think about the fact that technology is just one component of that shift, and there are other areas of which, if interested, LinkEd could provide support with that, or there are other entities that could provide that support. But it's not just adding technology to a traditional service that's highlighted in the paper that we put out. It's the shift to individualized services and the crucial component of technology to be a part of that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate you taking the time to join